Welcome to Bound by Books. I'm author Marianne, and today's episode I am joined by Evelyn Lederman.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Lederman. I write paranormal, sci-fi, and fantasy romance, as well as young adult fantasy and science fiction.
Evelyn is a compadre of mine. We met, I think it's almost a decade ago, right? At Authors After Dark. And she is also a compadre of mine in that she is a fellow paranormal author who writes everything that goes bump in the night, like me. But wearing your sci-fi mantle, I haven't ventured into that yet. So anyway, today Ev and I are going to talk about conventions because today is March 22nd and we are literally on the cusp of convention season. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Okay.
Spring is in the air making me sneeze. Um, anyway, convention season begins very, very shortly, and there's a bevy of them that happen in the spring, straight through the summer and into the fall. And even though there are some conventions in the winter, most of them are concentrated in the better weather months. And they can be geographic and so forth. I am a veteran of a bunch of different ones, but so is Evelyn. So today I want to talk about how you started going to conventions and what gave you the bug to go from where you were as an attendee to where you are now. So take it away, Ev.
Hey, well, I don't know how many of you have been around long enough to remember Borders bookstores.
I do.
But it actually, they always had like a huge romance department, unlike Barnes and Noble, which keeps getting smaller and smaller. And I was at the one in Canoga Park, and there were these postcards for this romance novel convention in Denver, Colorado. This was 2009. And not Sherilyn Kenyon, Christine Feehan, Janine Frost, uh, Julia Quinn, some of the authors I just soaked up were going to be there. And I never thought I would attend one, but I put my big girl pants on, and I was living in LA at the time, working full time, and I went to Denver for this conference, and I felt like a teenager going to a rock concert. It was incredible. And I'm painfully shy. But that weekend, I decided, you've got to be outgoing. You've got to go to talk to people. You've got to do this. And I had the most incredible time. And there are people I met that weekend that are still my friends. And some of them I still go to conferences with. So you need to go out there, and even if you're painfully shy, just swallow it and go up to a perfect stranger and start talking, because you never know what's going to happen.
And you were a reader. You weren't a writer yet then,
Yeah,
correct?
I was my first probably the first 5 years I attended conferences, I was a reader. I was still working. I never in a million years thought I would write a book. Never in a million years. And I think when we first met, I was still a reader.
Yes, at Authors After Dark.
And what I do is
Oh, wait, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was
the novel
the
experience.
novel experience in Texas. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think it was the one in
Or Vegas.
could have been the one in Vegas.
Yep.
But you could go to a conference and go to see one person or two people, and that's where all your focus is. That's always a mistake, because you never know who you're going to meet. And so, when I went to the book signing, I had this, okay, Evelyn, you're only going to buy 10 books. And I ended up leaving with 70 books or something like that,
Wow.
because I went from table to table and talked to the authors, because I'd never heard of you. And
No,
I
that's
ended up
true. I was
buying your
very
book.
new.
And I also ended up winning your raffle package, which happens
Yes.
to have been purple. It was like meant to be, because my worlds are purple.
Yes. Yes.
And
I did not wear a purple sweater today because I figured you would be wearing one
I
since it's your
know, I
signature,
know, I know. I
but that's
usually
okay.
do. I usually have a purple fascinator on, but today I'm just Evelyn Lederman, reader and author who attends conferences, and I've I always pack all of these purple clothing and my purple fascinator, but today I'm just me. So
Well, that's part of your branding, and that's something
yeah,
that is is a topic that we should probably touch on. You know, when you make the transition between going to a convention as a reader versus as an author. As a reader, you're there to enjoy yourself. You're there to meet as many people as you can. Like you said, you kind of have to just be balls to the wall and go out there and just, even if you're have a crippling shyness, or you're an introvert, you want to be able to meet authors that it's because it's the whole purpose of being there. The whole purpose of going to a reader writer convention as a reader is to hear new voices and to be experiencing new voices and to meet other people who are the same ilk, the same like-minded person who loves the escape of that you get from the between the pages of a book. But when you make the transition, and since our podcast is basically craft and industry for authors of all kinds, whether you're newbie or whether you're veterans like you and I, going to conventions is kind of a staple. It's one of the ways for you to have FaceTime with readers, both readers that you already have, in your readership stable, and ones that you want to meet and you want to entice to take a chance on you. So starting from the very beginning, you didn't have a brand right at the very beginning because you were just starting out, but now you've developed it where you said you have a specific kind of almost like a uniform, with the purple and the fascinator and so forth. But I would like you to take you back in time to when you first came to your first event as an author,
okay.
and what were your experiences then? What was your takeaway of what you learned to do and what you learned not to do? And then, if you want, please take us to today and what you do differently now than you did then.
Okay.
It's a lot. I just take your time because I know we're
I,
talking about a decade here, right?
having gone to conferences as a reader for so long, I basically knew what turned me off as a reader. And of all the authors I've met over the years, there's only one author that I stopped reading because I thought she was so rude and she didn't engage with any of the readers.
That's a
And it is
shame.
really sad, but generally we're a community.
Yes.
We love talking to each other. And whether or not you write paranormal books, I read historical, I read urban fantasy, I read contemporary. There's something about us that is we all love to read.
Yes. Authors
And,
are definitely readers. It's how we all
and
start out.
yes, so generally what I do is I want to find out about the reader I'm talking to. I'm not going to be there doing an elevator pitch for my book. I want to know the reader and what they like to read. And yeah, if they're historical writers, I'll talk about, hey, I met Julia Quinn, who wrote the Bridgerton series, and how lovely she was. And I saw her at the airport after the conference, and we sat next to each other, waiting for a plane and just chatting away. Um, you'd be amazed at how lovely everybody is. And I have no idea where my train of thought was going to go with that.
Okay. What did you experience as a new author
Okay.
standing on the other side of the
Yes.
table?
Yes. So what you're building is you're building a relationship. You're not there to just sell books because there are a lot of books out there. So why would somebody want to buy your book? So if, let's say, you run into somebody who likes historical and only reads historical, I just chat with them because I love historical novels. I'm like, hey, if you ever want to change a pace, give me a try. You can always get one of these books free, and so on and so forth. And but eye contact's important. If you're signing some books for somebody and you see somebody in line, wave and say, hey, I'll be right with you. I can't wait to talk with you. If I see somebody that's standing alone, I will go up to them and introduce them myself, and I'll say, hey, how are you? And so on and so forth. And then I'll introduce them to another reader so that they feel comfortable. And the reason I wear that purple fascinator is they may not remember my name, they may not remember my face, but they'll remember the purple fascinator.
Yep.
And maybe they'll go, ooh, I want to go to her table and find out more about this person. And
What about now? Now that you've been writing for a while, you've had success, and you're still standing behind the table, but now instead of just one or two books, you have, I saw you at the last time we were at a convention together, you have your table is filled with
yeah,
books.
yeah.
And I just, how many do you have now?
Well, according to somebody who pulled up my website when I was having lunch with them, I have 44 books on Amazon, although a
That
number of them are novellas.
doesn't matter. It's still a book.
Oh yeah, it's 44 books.
Yeah.
And
That's amazing, Evelyn. That's amazing.
yeah, it's crazy. It's gotten to the point now where I'll only bring certain books with me to go on the table unless they do a pre-order. So if you're going to a conference and you have the opportunity to do some pre-orders, grab the pre-orders so that the author doesn't sell out. But also what I also did, which is how I found a lot of authors, is when I went to conferences, I knew the authors I already knew and read, but I always chose 4 or 5 new authors I'd never read before and read one of their books.
So
And
suppose somebody comes to you who has done that,
yeah,
who is not just getting online for, the big name, but is interested in new voices, or they've passed your table 2 or 3 times, and when they've done their, done their walkthrough,
yeah.
and your covers are just screaming to them to come and look. How do you handle a brand new reader who doesn't know you when you're behind the table? What do you do? How do you mentioned the elevator pitch? Because we all know that readers, as they pass, you don't have an awful lot of time to get them to stay and talk with you. But now this is somebody who's your cover has caught their eye. What do you
Yeah.
do next? And what would you say as a rule of thumb for people who are just starting out?
Well, if a particular cover catches their eye, I'll talk about the series. If they just want to know what I write, I talk about, well, what do you like to read so that I can focus? That if they reading YA, I focus on the YA books. If they want something a little spicier, although I don't write real spicy, just a little spice, I talk about these books. If I see horror in their face when I mention sci-fi, I'll talk about the paranormal books. And
Okay.
which is nice because I have a variety of books, so I can tailor it. And that's one of the reasons why I started writing young adult, is that, I would have these kids come to my table, and out of good consciousness, I couldn't sell them my books unless their mother was there and I could explain what was in the book. But my YA books, there's no sex and there's no bad language. And also loved writing them.
Are they all under Evelyn Lederman?
Yeah, they're all under Evelyn Lederman. I know that there's some authors that will change their name.
I'm one of them, yes.
Yeah, and when I was thinking about doing that, I was number one, I was thinking about maybe becoming a hybrid writer, which basically means right now I'm an independent author. I publish my own books. If you're a hybrid writer, you're also getting published by a publisher.
Yes.
I thought I could do that with my YA books, although my independent writer friends had a hissy fit, so I didn't do that. But I was at some conferences and I noticed that Gina Showalter and Janine Frost, who both write hot paranormal books, started writing young adult, and they used their name.
Yeah,
And
there are so many different schools of thought with that. That the two of them had such a established readership that they could do it. It's like, Patricia Briggs could publish an old-fashioned phone book and people would still buy it, that type of a thing. I decided when I was going to write YA, still in the paranormal vein, just like
yeah,
you.
yeah.
And originally I published it under Marianne Maria. And it was only when I went to Orlando Reads Books that I attended an industry day. And that's when I was told you really need to stay in your lane because of reader expectation. That, so, if, because I, unlike you, my adult books are very spicy. So if somebody is picking up one of my adult books and then they pick up one of the YA books, even though it says it's young adult right there in the blurb, people are still going to be like, hey, where's all the, the fun, so to speak. And vice versa, if somebody's read all of my YA books and they're going to pick up my other books, and then they'll be horrified by the graphic, scenes and so forth. So I had to delineate my lanes, that way. But I, getting back to conventions, you and I are both going to be attending Literary Love in Savannah in July.
And we're both part of the Vampire Party.
Yes, we are both part of the Vampire Party. And one of the things that I learned, and you can tell me whether or not you've had the same experience, is that when I'm sitting behind the table and, and the doors open and the first wave of readers come in, is not to sit and not to have my phone in my hand, but to stand behind my table, like you said earlier, make eye contact with everybody as they pass and try to make a little bit of conversation. Oh, that's a cute shirt. Oh, I love those shoes. You know what I mean? And something that would make a connection between them, and also not to overclutter my table with too much, because then there's nowhere for the eye to focus when people are coming. Like I noticed at the last convention you and I were at, that you had a wonderful way of displaying your books. Now, when people come over, have you noticed that they appreciate the way that you actually organize your table? That it's easy for them to navigate your series and the other things, because we all put finger swag, as I like to call them, free things for people to pick up. And so, even if they're not interested in your books, that they'll have something of yours that they could take home, that later on they may say, oh, I remember this. And then they'll look up, your books online.
Yeah. I used to have candy on the table. I don't do that anymore. I will put like marks on the table, but when it comes to pens or other swag, I don't put it on the table because I don't want the reader to just grab it and take off. I want to hand it to them.
Yes.
And say, hey, here's a pen. Thanks for stopping by. Do you have any questions, or what do you like to read? It's just a way to grab them.
Yes.
Before they just take off, because they can basically grab something without even looking at you.
Yes. And oftentimes there are people who come in for the freebies. They're not really interested in what you have to say, or your books for that matter. They just want whatever's free on the table. And like you, I used to have baskets. I used to have baskets of stickers and baskets of pins and pens and, things that were small. But I thought, okay, if somebody wants to know about me, and what I have done, and other people may want to take this, is I went and I bought cello bags that are self-sealing, or even the ones that you like, the clear gift bags that you get for like at kids' parties and so forth. And I put some of that stuff in there, and I made a little mini swag pack, so that when they were talking to me, I could reach behind, excuse me, again, all of a sudden Mother Nature has decided to invade my space. And I hand it to them, like you were saying, you do with the pen. And it makes a difference, because if they come to the table, they're going to come to see the books and to talk to me, and not to grab a freebie, right. And that's something that I think is important, is to remember that even though you're there to meet readers, you're also there to sell books too, and and you need to make sure that you treat your position behind that table, behind that book signing table, as a professional. Have you seen people who don't act professional versus people who do act professional? What are some of the do's and don'ts that you can talk to the newbie authors who are watching right now or listening right now, that what they could expect, what they should do and what they shouldn't do? Just an overview, not something, because everybody's different, but
it's Literary Love. We share a table, and you want to engage when you're setting up with the writer next to you, or the author next to you. but you do not want during the signing to get into a conversation with them, because you are there to meet the readers, not to talk to um, the
Your
author.
fellow author. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if there's nobody in front of you and there's nobody coming, yeah, you can talk to the author. And at one point, I think 2 years ago, I was sitting next to the author who had the same cover artist as I did. So we quickly took a picture and sent it to Fiona Day. But again, you're there to meet the readers. Now, if you're paired with somebody who you know and who writes the same books that you do, you can basically transition who you've talked to or who you purchased to the
Yes.
the author next to you. But that's
Yes.
only if you're familiar with their books and that you've got a relationship, because even though somebody's writing next to you, you don't know the quality or the types of books that they're writing,
Right.
that they just, so you just have to be careful in that respect. But again, as you were mentioning, don't check your emails.
No.
Because even if somebody's across the hall, across the way, and you make eye contact, you wave.
Yes.
If you've got your eyes, half the time when I've got to do a payment with a credit card, I'm like, where is my phone? Because you've got the square on the phone or however you do it, but it's not something that you want visible. What you want visible are your books, and present who you are and have high contact and talk as much as you can.
I
And
had an experience a couple of years ago where I was paired with an author, and they were just the most chatty Cathy. And they did it during the LLS has the pre-order signing,
yeah,
usually on the Thursday of the event. The event LLS, for those of you who don't know, Literary Love is a 4-day event. I highly recommend it because it is jam-packed with parties as well as all different kinds of fun and events where you can have real FaceTime with a lot of readers, both favorites and new to you authors and so forth. And they feed you. There's dinners and lunches that are included. There's parties that are included, and all you have to do is just make sure that you sign up, because some of the parties only have room for like 25 people or 40 people or whatever. So it's first come first serve with that. But yeah, I highly recommend it. It's in July, and it's very, very reasonable for everything that you get. So there's my pitch for Literary Love. But one year I was paired with somebody who was very much a chatty Cathy and a lovely, absolutely lovely, lovely person. But after the initial Thursday signing, which was for pre-orders, so people had already bought the book, so it wasn't like I was selling new things. Because their attention was trying to keep me, I didn't have enough time to really interact with the people who bought my books. And it came back later on that I seemed distracted, that these were people who had been my readers for a really long time, because most people who pre-order from you, a lot of times they're people who have read you before. And a lot of times they could even be one clickers, people who will just, as soon as you put something out without even knowing what it's about, will just buy it because it's from you and they love your work. So, and that was like a metaphoric slap in the face to some of these people. And I was trying to pay attention to them, but also not be rude to my table mate as well. So it was a very fine dance. And afterwards, I took every single one of the people who, in different at different times, not together, but I took them out for either a coffee or a drink, or when I saw them in the lobby, I had something special for them. I went upstairs and I just, I went through all my swag, and I was like, okay, I need to make amends for this, because these are my readers and I did not do right by them because I didn't want to be rude to my table mate. But later on, I spoke to my table mate when we sat down for the Saturday signing, and I said, listen, I know that you're nervous and you want to talk and so forth, but please, when no one's around, that's fine. But the minute people are walking by us, Your focus should be on them. Your focus should be on the reader. My focus should be on the reader. That's what we're here for. We are professionals. This is our job. This is not for us to just hang out. And I think a lot of new authors, they're so nervous that they forget that this is a job, and that they're not there to just kind of chit chat with with the person next to you. I'm not saying put up a wall, but at the same time, you have to remember who is the most important force in why you're there, and that's the reader. Getting to know them, like you've said, and so forth. And they say you can't teach old dogs new tricks. Well, that was something that happened just, I think it was like 3 years ago, or no, 3 years ago was COVID. Maybe so 4 years ago, maybe 2019. And, or 2018, I can't remember. But, I had been doing events for a while then. So you would think I would know. But at the same time, like you say, you walk that line between not wanting to be rude and not wanting to be a brat to somebody. But at the same time, they have to respect that this is your space and this is your time to do your work, to be, your marketing, your business. So anyway, what is the best thing about conventions besides the readers? What is the best thing about conventions?
Besides the readers, the best thing about the conventions, I think it's just, again, it's about the community, our tribe.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. Our tribe.
Yeah, we do share something. And I remember my first conference was Rom-Com in Denver, and it's not around anymore because the owner of the conference became a very, very popular erotic romance writer. So she doesn't, Grace Goodwin. So she doesn't do it anymore, but I used to love her to death. And she did something very interesting. It was my first conference, and she created buddies. So I had 3 buddies. I had a young professional just out of college. I had an Earth Mother from Oregon, and an out of works a woman from Denver. And I mean, there was nothing that under normal circumstances that we had in common, but we had books in common, and we bonded that weekend.
As readers.
Yeah.
Okay, so they weren't authors then. They were just readers.
They were readers. And again, one of them I'm still in communication with, and Karen Anderson.
Uh-huh.
She was at that first conference.
Yeah, she's one of my one clickers.
We get together every year and do something, just because we were there from the beginning. We were at all rom-coms together, and she
did my cover.
Yeah,
it's backwards because I've got the mirror image thing on. Let me see if I can change that. But yep, there we go.
But that's basically the other part that's so important is just the
Karen makes these for all her favorite authors.
Just the friendships that you and every year you just develop more and more friends, and it's so important. And especially after COVID.
Yeah, I didn't go to the conventions in
I did.
2020.
We were all wearing masks and so on and so forth, but it was so nice after the vaccines were out and we were all vaccinated. And again, we had wristbands like not vaccinated, stay away, or vaccinated but don't hug me, or come on over.
Yeah.
It was so nice to hug your friends again.
Yeah. I went to that one. That was in 2021. So yeah, the one in 2020, it was just COVID was just too rampant, and I didn't have any protections, and I have an immunocompromised husband. So there was just no way that I was going to do it. Even though I had paid for the event, there was just no way that I was going to do it, because you paid for the event the year before. Who the hell knew COVID was going to hit in March of that year? So, but now everything seems to be back in the swing of things, everything, and which is great. And the fact that, I know that there are tons of new authors out there who are trying to, to break into the industry. And our industry can be a very cold industry, like the music industry and like the film. So in terms of things, do's and don'ts for newbie people, newbie authors who are looking to go into the convention scene. We've already said, put yourself out there. Don't chit chat and be on your phone when the readers are around, because it's about them. Set up your table so for easy access for readers to be able to see your books. Now, I learned something when I went to Pensacon in Pensacola, Florida, was that to have the eye go from the lowest book up. And I never realized. I figured they would go up and down, but to have them be at a position where they have things 1, 2, 3 right up there this way, as opposed to stacks of books and then one in front of it, stacks of books and then one in front of it. And having that small little riser
Yeah.
made a difference in organization, made a difference in somebody picking up your book and something falling over, and I've had that happen before too. The other thing we discussed was, making sure that you have your swag as something that you could use as a talking point when
Yes.
somebody comes, whether it's a thank you for stopping by my table, call me, contact me if you're interested, or hey, thanks for buying my book. Here's a special swag pack for you. You could have your freebie giveaway things that you don't care about, and then you have your swag that you've put together for the readers who actually take a chance on you and buy your book. So it's this, so that somebody who's not is not getting the same reward as somebody who actually purchases one of your books. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which seems to be up and coming now, and I mean, they had it in the past, but I've seen it used much more, are QR codes. Have you used them? There you go. There you go. What is on that QR code?
This is a free book for Nightshade. My PA actually made it so that you've got the cover and I've got the purple background. And this way, if people are, you're at an airport, or you're at a restaurant and somebody's like, oh, you're an author? Like, here, give it a try. And yeah, so yeah, the QR code. And this is the first time I've used it.
Now, is that first in series?
It is a first in series.
Yep, those are very important as lost leaders to give away.
Yeah. Do not give away a book that is like 3 or 4 or 5 books into the series.
No, first in series is always best.
Yeah, you really should do the first in series. Now, I write most of my books, whether it's the 5th book or the 6th book in the series, I write it so it's standalone.
Yes.
That somebody can, if they accidentally get the 5th book, they know what's going on. Not authors do that, because I picked up a book somebody gave me, and it was like the 5th or 6th book in the series. I did not have a clue what was going on.
Yeah,
So,
I've had a couple of beta readers tell me that each one of my books in the Curse by Blood series, even though it's better to be read in order, that they could be read as a standalone, which is why was something that I was really happy with. How often do you change things up on your table at a convention, or do you change up your quick elevator pitch as someone is walking by and you say, what do you like to read? And they stop and they pick up the book and they kind of skim, the back blurb. Have you gotten it down to where you've got your 5-second and your 10-second and then your 20-second, and then you can just, if they stay for the longest pitch you have, then you can talk to them for a longer period of time?
well, I really tailor it to the reader based on what they're interested in. If it's this book, my Nightshade book, it's like, could you imagine being a college freshman, but you drink blood?
Oh, that's a great pitch.
And
That's a great pitch. I would pick that up. You know me.
or my science fiction book, aliens come and they've come for our aliens invade and they've come for our children who are 12 to 15 years old, and it's written third person for a 14-year-old girl's eyes who was selected. And so again, it just depends on but I try to do just like one-liners, because my books tend to be complicated, because especially my first series, because I write about parallel dimensions, and I sometimes get a little too involved in the explanation.
I've
And,
done that too,
and,
which
and just like, they kind of look at me like, so I try to do the, the one-liners, what we would refer to as taglines,
yeah.
just to get the person interested. And, if sometimes they have X amount of money to spend, or I sell out of my first in series and they're going to go in later and buy the book through Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever. But you don't want to give up on that reader. Just keep talking to them, because my first Authors After Dark, I ran out of the Chameleon Soulmate, which was the first book in my Worlds Apart series. And she goes, "Oh, I'll buy it online." And we talked for quite a while. And a week later, she contacts me saying, "Hey, I bought the first book. I finished the series. I'm about ready to start the Nightshade series because it's."
Wow.
And
That's great.
she turned into a reader that would buy it the first day, review it the second day, and call me the third day, or email me the third day wanting to know when's the next book coming out.
Can you send her my way?
And I'm like, Jacqueline.
Yeah,
But again, as a new author, just because they're not going to buy right then and there, don't give up on them.
no, no, you shouldn't. That's why it's important to have things like that card with the QR on it, the QR code on it. It's important to have. I learned this the hard way when I went to Orlando Reads Books. Amazon didn't deliver a box of books in time for me to be able to go to this convention. They were supposed to come on Tuesday, even though they were at a facility in Connecticut that was in driving distance from where I was in New York to go pick them up. They wouldn't let me just go to the facility to pick them up. So, and there was no way that they were going to get to me in time for me, because I was leaving Wednesday, the next day, to go to the convention. So, on when I had my panel and I had my table, I didn't have the newest book that I had just put out, which was my There Goes My Midlife Crisis, paranormal women's fiction. It was the first one in series. So what I did is I made a booklet with the first chapter and then all the contact information in the back. And I should have done a QR code and I didn't. And that was a big mistake for me, because even though I had the link, somebody would have still had to type it in. Whereas a QR code, all they needed was their phone and their camera. So that was a learning experience for me. But every single person who came to my table took that first teaser chapter. And I know that out of everybody that took one, there were people who actually did go ahead and buy the book later on. So, like you said, do not give up on a reader that is interested in you. Do not. So, any other last minute comments on conventions that you would like to impart to any of the authors that are out there that might be considering? Do you think it's worth the money?
It's worth the money, because if you're not having a good time, you're not giving off the proper vibe. And
I'm so glad you said
I
that.
love attending conferences and I love meeting people. And yeah, I sometimes don't attend the activities at night because I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Because they're like psychic vampires, just soaking you up. But it's a lot of fun. You have a lot of fun. You meet a lot of great people, but it's important you have fun and that you're smiling. And
Yes.
not fake smiling so it hurts at the end of the day. Just
Yes.
be yourself, be genuine. And most writers are, we were talking about that before you started taping. Most authors are introverts.
Yes.
So during these conferences, we have to be extrovert introverts.
Yes. And it's very difficult because you're running out of your hotel room and you've got bags of stuff on your shoulders because you've got stuff you need for the events you're going to be attending or hosting, and then stuff you can give away to readers you meet in the elevator and in the lobby and in the restaurants and at the bar and at the events. And you're frazzled because your brain is going a million miles an hour. You just have to stop yourself, take a breath, get in the elevator and breathe. And then when those elevator doors open onto the main floor, smile on your face because you are on. And as much as that makes every single one of us extroverted introverts cringe because we don't want to. It's like we'd rather just go upstairs and just type our fantasies onto our laptop, into Microsoft Word or Scrivener or whatever we use. This is a necessary part of our profession, is FaceTime with readers. And so when those elevators doors open and you are on, remember, the characters that you create are bigger than life. So you have to present yourself as bigger than life, and you have to present yourself as fun, like you said, because it's, even though it's work, you still should be enjoying this part of our job, because when otherwise do we go outside of our four walls and our computer? Most of us, some of us day jobs, some of us are, writing is just the work that we do, but most of us are very happy in our little cocoon creating. And I think that's something that helps us get out of our own self, and out of our own heads. And it never ever ever gets old when a reader tells you, "Oh my God, I loved that book." I mean, do you remember the very first time that you ever had somebody say that to you?
I was at because I lived in Florida for a while, and I was at the Fort Myers Reader Festival, and I was in the marketplace. I wasn't one of the invited big names, and a room full of people emptied, and this young woman came forward, and the person I'm sharing the table with, friend of mine, starts, her sales pitch. She's very aggressive, and she goes, "I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to her," pointing to me. And she picked up Nightshade, and she said, "I've read this book 3 times, and I'm going to try to borrow it again from my friend because I want to read it again." And the Nightshade's kind of a dark book. And I'm like, "You've read this book 3 times?" And she goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Let me give you a copy of the book and the next one." Because it just,
Yeah.
that was just like, oh my God.
I remember the very first time I ever met a reader by the name of Tara, and you probably know her, because she was part of the novel experience and Authors After Dark earlier. She's actually dabbled in writing now herself, therapy. And she came up to me and she was just like, "Hi." And I was just like, "Hi, how are you?" And she's just like, "I loved your books. I loved Hollow's End. It's my favorite book." I was just so taken aback by it that I didn't know how to thank her, so I just kind of, without even asking, which is which is terrible, I just got her in a hug, and I was just like, "Thank you so much." She probably thought I was a crazy person, but it's something that you never forget. And where else can you get that? Yes, you can get emails from people and you can get messages from people and so forth, but there's nothing like seeing that look on a reader's face at a convention when they actually come face to face with you as the author of a book that they love. And that makes everything worthwhile right there in a nutshell. That makes everything worthwhile. So I think we've covered just about everything. And if we didn't, we can always come back and just talk about it more. We've covered our best experiences. I'm sure there's plenty of times we can cover our worst experiences too. But at the same time, if you had to weigh the pros and cons of the expense and the worry and all of the organization and work that goes into going to a convention, and then when you get home, the exhaustion that you feel afterwards, if you put that all together and stack them up in pros and cons of that, the pros far outweigh the cons of going to a convention. At least as far as I'm concerned, I think you agree.
Yes, yes.
So thank you, Evelyn, for joining me today on Bound by Books. Please, if you have any comments about experiences you've had at conventions, or if you have questions for either myself or Evelyn, we would be more than happy to answer them. Before we go, Evelyn, can you tell our viewers and our listeners where they can reach you for your books, especially if they're interested in the first book of the Nightshade, the series that you just put up? So
You can scan that with your
there it
phone.
goes.
Evelyn, it would be Evelyn, EVELYN evelynauthor@gmail.com. And my website is evelynlederman.com. And I recently hired a new PA because my other one flaked on me a year and a half ago. So
Oh.
we've been working on updating the website. So all the books are up there now, the new ones. And we'll be putting the freebie, which is the first prequel of the Worlds Apart series, that should be up there shortly. So keep checking on it.
Are they available everywhere or just on Amazon?
Most of because I go back and forth between Kindle Unlimited, where somebody pays a monthly fee and gets to read all they want, but does not allow us to put our books anywhere else. So I go off and on of Kindle Unlimited, but right now most of my books are wide. So pretty
Okay.
much anywhere you want to go, the books are there.
Okie
But
dokie.
they're definitely all on Amazon.
Okay. Anyway, thank you again. And everybody join us again next Monday for another episode of Bound by Books. Bye-bye.
Wait! Before you go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out on our website, boundbybookspodcast.com.